United Nations. My name is Noble Hamo, President of the Tri-State Dongam Chushkundu, and I'm honored to be your English MC for this event. My counterpart, who we have just heard in Tibetan, is Naum Tashi, Vice President of the US Tibet Committee, will be the Tibetan MC. December 10th, International Human Rights Day, is particularly significant for us as it marks the joyous occasion when our Supreme Leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. However, our snow-covered land of Tibet has been forcibly occupied by the enemy of Buddhism, the Chinese Communist regime. Under brutal oppression and tyranny, the Tibetan people in their homeland live in endless suffering day and night, which forced His Holiness and many Tibetans into exile. This day has become an occasion for us to voice our hardships and appeal to the international community, world leaders, and the United Nations. Today, we officially launched the North American-wide Tibet Committee. With that being said, we shall first have the Tibetan national anthem. Thank you.
Yeah. Go to Cayman.
Check. Me.
Say, Shiva. Da go to Vede. To the Sambe no be ye number. And no de Jazz go wiki. Chileke rozoke doji kamso denbe chogun chamse gyong namgyu gawa yasu yuba ulari punzong de shi nga dange punzu cheka sumgi kut degi zombe sarbe jang Je sais que bien dai tu te cho que bezam le ambe que yo shi de bela jo be jo den zhe jia zi ni ye ge cha xi ye na bong zhou zhou wei si na chu min bei yi le ge yo qi Hey, hello!
Mutu kushanko. Bege dabna. Meri ki cheto. Kanso.
Papalina ya was.
So namge geji bao bao namge. Cheto dusan namge cheto. Kamache nyange kudu suji.
And now we are going to have a moment of silence in memory of the heroes and heroines who sacrificed their lives for the Tibetan nation and people, both inside and Tibet.
Did you want to? Things you need to do.
Drupsong, Suchenang, Ushunang. This show though, during the liquidity, Tommy Jungin Dang, some law, Jackie, so Pang, Greenland, America, Sunny Flagel, Sokoda, Sunny California, Yamshung Nankin, Rashdoji, Jibla, during the liquidity during the Kangla institution again.
Okay, next on, we're going to have a brief remark on the campaign's originator by the initiated Tashi Doji, Public Relation Officer of the Tibetan Association of San Francisco, California. But before I bring him on stage, I would like to make a few remarks as he will be speaking in Tibetan. During the North American Tibetan Association Conference in Minnesota, there was a discussion about having a North American Peace Rally this year as it is a year of compassion coinciding with His Holiness turning 90. This peace rally came about from that discussion. Tashi Dojla spoke to a member of the parliament, Tenzin Jigmila, Lobga Rangzan, president of the Tibetan National Congress, Ngaung Teshla, who's by my side, Thupten Chingila, who has been having his soul rallies all year long in Philadelphia, and Tenzin Lumdula in Canada. They decided upon this rally, but since it was decided to be held in New York, a member of the parliament, Tenzin Jigmila, suggested bringing the major organizations in. They requested the Tibetan community of New York, New Jersey, the Regional Tibetan Youth Congress, the Tibetan Women's Association, Dongam Chishikundu, and the Students for a Free Tibet. And the latter four of us joined. Hence, the organizing committee consists of the Regional Tibetan Youth Congress of New York, New Jersey, the Regional Tibetan Women's Association of New York, New Jersey, the Tri-State Dongam Chishikundu, US Tibet Committee, Tibetan National Congress of New York, Students for Free Tibet of the local chapter. I thought it is important to mention the individual few who initiated this huge event and the organizations in New York who made it happen. San Francisco, California, Pierre, and then get some of the charge shook says that the Rona Ashu and Kran Toshiche, just like Peruna.
Someone just delay. There goes she from Madelua. I can ask you, Kariki Delia, Pomadelia, Tanangato, Jamaica, Joyce, which are going to be this is only getting also the Michizuki, Sari, Nambani, to the similar Nambania, just the Chapchi, Yonashiki, Janula, Yonashiki, Namaso, Nimanaba, Rotterdam, Penasha, to the Rayuan Yatwichin Ashri, and then Yemile Testoji, Chitangi Sani, Nangush, Shavana, Logic, Chambali, Poga, Hilirwa. And the machine is social area, Patu Malia, which is another nice Suki, that's Italia, Moguchi Shimu, and Samurai too. And number 4 of the day to Ramji, and the answer there, what is holding area, Rani, Sumana Shizuki Tale, Sosu Rani, area, Chile of Bertie, and a Sondi of the Child Kalia, Hikalia, number 4 that Jewish Rata, Wing, Nisi, Jetoria. You don't need such a Shizuki, you don't need that. Jushi on the Chifu, Tapu, and you can get a salt. Social running and Yago Hunchita. You're not seeing two Masu Sabachi. What? He in the Kaya. Social area, dinner, Raptor Bachi. You're not seeing Socket, the Sopa Yushi, the Colorado also, Boston, the Focus by Yamala, the Penire. You're not seeing Philadelphia, also, you're not seeing Virginia. You're not seeing the number. And you can position on a color missing. The newspaper is showing a politics in a Mazun area, you see the number head there. And the detail, Shaman head there. 얘는 유도니 삽게라야 보라속에 되는 알아서 주변 오늘 공예기 시송이야 레비스 다도 시계치기 레비스 무슨 때부터 말했지 소소면이야 지단그 소주 자를 가버야 탑들게 토하지 미시기 대단하시게 되니 소소기 탑도 냠돌이야 직통나서 미르스 잡이 있는데 이 시송이야 아 로버처럼 지금 대만 송어 저저 방에 원이야 아니 소소면이야 탑도 선나다도 결결이 뒤줄롱돌로 저배 대강 알아서 트렌드야 거기 소주는 염신에 로가랑 앉을라 대강 어쩌실라 대강하시 우제 지금 우견라 아니 지금 되게 지금 저배 대강하시 민서백이 다시 다가로 저 상물러리다 소주 거기 시비 시송기 아니 먼저 그렇지 대구 때문에 야구 동스 시비 야교스 탑에 시송기 아 비나리아 믹스기 단데 지금 되게 지금 라기 고두 시는 남대기 시송기 다른 데리야 산에 뉴욕에 먼저 배부도 시비 시송기 폭발 주지 냠도 수치도 야구도 제일 깔로 남대 나중에 대가나시기 상주다 대바 유로 천대는 뭐냐 냠브르고 돈 나토도 시비 시송기 달랭 아주 듣네 주로 제 조물은 다른 이 모델이야 대응 나주 소주로 조치나 나주 생계리야 소주로 조치나 밑에도 남대 대나시기 나주 배미소 배 강지바 잠세집의 시송기 나도 코메버제 파위도 집 매야체로와 상월로 독서 직대난 구도시 이 소용을 시대 주서 남아 소리야 아니 대연도 그런 땀 먹고 쉬우데 그저 슬링이면 대 남아 먹고 싶어 쉬우래 소소원이야 다른의 손에 나라서 배 강제 바스와 저가 줄로 예와 메바톤에 독자 직대난 것도 개주고도 이 나시기 마음발랑 나라족이 신경 살이야 독자 직지 와 대가나시기 밑벨람데 탑적을 토하리야 이 나한테 개주무지 아니 대가나시기 소속의 배대 전반 맞춰지 소속의 예다도 멋있지 대가나시기 나를 붙이기 까지 라나를 맞지 전반 맞지 때 개축을 해서 이 나라축이 미랍 캠박이 쉔버스나 되지 나한테 야보도시 다시 먹었던 담마달이야 공사초 아니 부채 유래 때부터 알아서 배우게 된다니만 요도 세와 실송기 정말 배jal로 배우신 투체나
허잘로
라소 단다 다시도 주발라 투체낭 링그기 주림당 아니 토미기 주림기 송바다 당한조 다른기 링그디 뭐였어 우주지기 토마라 상매 야도 그시에 터네 메망랑루 베기
And now we shall have the people's uprising song. Thank you.
Jama Bede Tache Tongi Bede Malo Show Kenai Jama Bede Tache Tongi Bede Malo Show
Sudah jarang nak punya macam. Terus ke, legal di, uji tanya ke, sosong ke, सब चीजें ने, सनी न्यूयॉर्क न्यू जर्सी, बेटी शिनन जो के सोलो, लॉस एंजलिस, चार्ली,
갈라선데
라이브 당겨.
라이브 반대
장아미리게,
보통
이게 그대 레귤 디게, 뭐지, 인도시,
틀려도 돼
예전에는 나 시에이, 순서 쉬는 현장 있어서.
Okay, now we shall have the campaign introduction by Lobsang Sering, President of the Regional Tibetan Youth Congress. I just wanted to add that this Regional Tibetan Youth Congress has a rally every 10th of the month in front of the Chinese consulate. And dawat takpe chula ani sane ki phil shunlen ki ani gemishin so pila kebe ngore tadi mima mamu edo ale sana chne ya hwa kashi ya mode plan de tayo rusu mi da de ru chi chi te chi shi do chu so asa se ba chu shena
아니 동화대 비밀나나 베베 우지 진호 공사 강력 정부초 라 구순 그거 제베 구차 도망원도 땅에토 폐계갑다 미리 기대답래 랑제 루소 용조 르도 난케 계제 파워다 파문 남기 닝도다 르도나 구시 챔베 가진 제제 슈바다다 동생 냠게 주주다 드링 진다 중립기세 주 그래서 하고 불하가 상시 슈바다다 드링게 님어 계신 법이 나라베 우지 진호 공사 탐제 견신 시거 중고 초라 장례남기 년다 제베 시베 노베 시대 생다 무셰제네 롱어 순서도 히고 거기 두지 개발직다 안디 강라 넘버즈 캔세레 드링게 님어데 아니 게지 도미 톱단기 님어 계시직 차디여레 디 강라 넘버즈 캔세레 단도디네 세가 시원나시 마라조 뉴욕다 뉴저시 라 차츠마다지나 아니 드링게 님어디 직 나왔다자 제주라 먼저 제주 레뷰직 배고래 제주 레뷰기 뱅주도디 드링게 님어디 차디거래 근데 인사 안 드링 데 먼저 뉴욕 계지 냠제 계속 된다라 아니 장 아메리게 시벨 레뷰 조중체 아니 전장기 돌아 너희 대산에서도기 의료 답조바 조바 두 부모 뭐냐 간당아도 산에 주노 구매해줘 노감 추지 강도 별안제 로도 조바 아니 배계열안제 해줘 아베자데 조바 제가죠 조바 두 두몽기 아니 드링기 시제책을 레뷰 게도 고지슈가 차대래 아니 니기 전에 중림다 니코 전에 어디다 망치 전에 많이 해서 슈사서 안 드링기 제고 니기 돌아 패배 데 나버조기 데 뒤로 슈베 마죠 베미마 기 고려 지도 도도들이 좋아다 아니 데 고려 지도 근데 진짜 지면라 쳐 아니 다 디나시 아니 데 군들라 봐 근데 샵자라 쉬나네 참말라 아니 얘기 참디 장에 쉬거다 아니 다다리 내가 말아줘 시자체베게 레그디 뉴욕라 가서 총과 두기 고지슈에 레그직 차대요래 다디기 중림다 모두 사회사들이 공라 인식다 비행기가 통라 슈사수라 안디 니기 슈되나 양자한테 짜도로 차대도라 너가서 계세에 다직 가라오래 말아줘 참마 배가 땀셈바 유도죠 직 지게이나래 야가이나래 먼저 직 장례 유도 가와를 주나 먼저 기 빼고 가나 아니 직접적라니 직표되어래 이 이집에 넘버 2제 가자 메롱어지다 딱도 최고의 민내다지 얘기를 상부들어 디나 인사 디기 가라 진호 공사장면 친구 추억이 즉 들어준도 가롭다 디나 신규 비밀 직속이 남들 패와 두두쌤과 샤베 토안에 아니 예수 소소소더라 아니 즉 남들 랑지기 겐치베기 겐치슈기 가서라 다 나라족이 베라와랑 제디 때가 잠아보네 자도 즉 잠아보네 주네디 베제 나라족이 다 겐치슈 즉 디차디 두samudura 근데 인자 자가 넘버서 캔슬 자베 즉 나라족 나발님께 창매기 소소 랑니 강주연기 후다 남다 남게 요런데 아니 단도 즉 벽이 내다디 자타로다 즉 녀다체로다 즉 갈라다 차지기 내가 내도 즉 별라 아니 근데 잠바벽이 벽이 자지기 쳐다 리쇼 공시상고 라소바 아니 벽이 뭐고라 매워서 여기 제도 아니 즉 말아줘 로유를 대백이 시지 망부지 짬이라 tenga jama beki ngarazo puri shaka chikbe puri pinda thale deba marse tang yore chunju che yore manguji che yore de ine digi pebegi semna yuwe ningdobda chino khose jamne chimbo chola kusida di yuwa di kunju mewa sotu meza ta tenga jama beki siju shemba nemba chikhalorda ngarazo samlol mahuwa siju ta pebegi 즉 미리기 나와서야 제도 회기 끼이다 죄다 리쇼다 아니 즉 나라도 남배 떠도기 매워서라지나 리쇼라지나 아주 회기 매워차야기 군주기 시행이 다 별라 즉 갈라오래 회기 자지기 죄다 리쇼 쌈에 도래다 고바 찾아 매워서야다 나라도 로기하기 띠니 기지상마 고겨야다 니나와 담다지야다 믹세 아니 로카시스게다 나라도기 회기 순자 다 직로로 마셔 술로 마셔 직다 사야망고 직 소주 파마다 소주에게 남인의 카제 땅에다 짜들럽다라 티니 아니 직 배바디 자미리 수에게 레구들이 망고치 빼고라 나머지 캔세베 진짜 인자 다 두줄라 시네 나라조 배디 차지기 내다 지네 다 나라조 뭐네 직다 레구 빼기 탑적이 레구기 나머지 캔세다 지조 다자 망고다 숨대도 뇨로도 나라조 그대인자 다 탐족이 레고디 니마 디리네 손이 남바족이라 직 수중 셈라 갈라올다 탐자샤고 얘기 두주지 레상부도 다린게 니모디 남바족 캔세를 맞아 대직좀 요래데 디린게 니모디 개치부 주차되라 디린게 니모디 지도 어느 장면 쳐보 쳐 공장 구줄을 베베 그 고대게 니모 이 베베 직족이 숨지 쉬고 요래 네가 잠재기로 숨지 쉬고 요래 아니 네가 나라조 초바 기도다 제다 아주 처음에 대쇼 랍더니 뭐 부인한 게 요래 다닌 두지 개침부래데 다 니네 개치에 직 나라조 자된디 나라조 개치슈기 직 조조게 문바디 때다 잠아보들 레디 나라조 점세 범위 요도 쪽라 아주 예 요래성부더라 미가주 카시지가 개치고 말해성부도 니가 나라조 초가 줄로이나래 아니 직 초가 기도이나래 따랑초이나래 간데지나라 수익을 내고 배우도나 벌도 때만 접시다 범위리기 된다 리고도나 리그 배우도나 아주 내가 샤니 요네 딱 봐도 배두고 말인데 이내 나와지가 찍다 인지 민지 남가 쪽에 두조 땅 두고 상부들아 아주 나왔다 눈다 딱 봐라 지 가노래 아니 가가도도다 지 빼줘 두고기 얘나 레고 소소냠조 제조사라 나와지가 그직 그때 맞췄습니다 미리게 돈다라 그제 레고 나 짬하도더니 말했상부도 배는 남가 쪽 계세를 말아줘 산의 준육이 지금 제 땅에 가시면 되라 산에 주는 아주 질량매 손에 다 딱절라 순주기 두대기다 그라 뽀뽀만 망고지기 소소 유소 용소도 땅으로 이 제설게 제도 나라도 다 딱하게 tre주라 아니 별대 맞춤진도 미리게 들다 아주 이게 예구지 빼는 게 그래 아니 니 남가죠 나도 레고디는 영수나게 시간 유니래 니 아주 니요 집부 말에 산에 가와이나 탑적이 레고라 시간 유니요 예외기 내가 디차딩 거래 디데이자 이마 디레인 거네 남아서 창맥이 디레고래게 수수셈 나와라 담자직 된 것이 아니라 그 얘기 가르치는 두나 마도나 그 때문에 접시도나 나와지가 니마 찍다게 그 돈당이 이마 찍다가 내가 샤기 이마 찍다가 직 불신을 이나래 불금을 이나래 녹음 추지반도 이나래 별랑들도 좁아 이나래 내 별개요랑들 이나래 다 알아서 총받치라고 하던데 앞에 자도 이나래 수액이 별 때문에 쳤지도 미리 줬던 내 빼어내지나 내가 냠수 지기 미시바기 가릴라날라 좋아 나게 망보여래 나게 줘도 지 나라도 그 가라오래 지게다 유독이 내가 수액이 치더라고 오래는 돌아 지 가라 빼받아 야고주달라고 말했을 것도 뒤에 인사 안 남았죠 참외기 예 망고 시에 먹어야 되네라 뭔가 시에 돈에 그저 잡주가 내부 때가 가는 남았죠 참외기 뭔가 시에 강도도 치알답다 용답다 지 가라 두주 동거야지 기시무차고도 쉬에 아니 대다 잡직 아니 두수에 디스네 저거 주해라 다들 대가도 이 병신을 낸저네 드린 게 이모라 아니 작당지 빼샤 니 조고 좀 놓으시기 아니 단편집 배치한 것도 내 갈라오래 두수에 뒤에 도구 의사래 가면 또 공세 시원다자 아니 딘데질라 잠시하기 페랑제 장마이
허런제 쌍바이
페랑제 장마이
허런제 쌍바이
까마변에 타조동기
모변에 더대동을
페겔로
허절로
부제나
두시에낭 단단한 것들이 가서 시절 시바스입니다. 지단 사운드 퍼미트 조르도 지단 당 중동식 디셀라 단다 페랑들도 소백에 이게 더다 달리기 링거디 뭐지 나마스
다들 나도시라 소소야 인데서 미마데 갑견하는 뭐 어때 이네 하시기 직 고치는 저 고치 간절히 체라스 공식과 다들 먼저게 드린다가 받거라디 필리핀에 가서 딱 보자다 인데 뭐 쉬우지래 고 지기사 데스 수수인데 파파파 양내야 누구데나 직소서 투수기 시송기래가 제사원도 고도와 디지털 랭게 상으로 콘센슈에이 and now we're going to have the campaign introduction in English by Tenzing Desang. She's going to represent the students for a free Tibet. And just to give you all a little bit of a thing, notification that this morning our timing was a little backlogged because it started all the way from New York up to Philadelphia and back to the Chinese consulate and so on and so forth. So we don't have the sunburn for very long. So as briefly as you all can, would be highly appreciated. I'm sure you all are prepared, but nevertheless, thank you so much. Please come on stage. Thank you.
China is trying to stop Tibetans like me from knowing what is happening in my motherland by silencing the voices of Tibetans inside Tibet. My name is Tenzin Desang, and not only am I a Tibetan forced to live in exile, I am also a grassroots intern at Students for Free Tibet. On this International Human Rights Day, and the 36th year anniversary of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, I request for everyone to raise awareness for Anya Singda and share his story with others. Anya Singda is an environmental defender and political prisoner who was wrongly put behind bars in 2018 is still in jail. Anya Singda would mobilize his local community to advocate against illegal mining, wildlife poaching, and government corruption. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison on politically motivated charges of picking quarrels and provoking trouble and gathering people to disturb public order. Anya Singda's brother was also detained and sadly was tortured to death by CCP officers. Anya Singda's family has only seen him twice in the past 7 years. Once last year and again earlier this year, with them saying how his health is rapidly deteriorating. Anya Singda should have never been in prison, and now his sentence has been extended and his health is at risk. Which is why Students for Free Tibet has created a letter writing campaign in which people, regardless of age and background, came together to fight for Anya Singda. From Dalhagar Gorsha Park to my high school, we are writing letters that express our support, admiration, and pride directly to Anya Singda's prison. Every letter writing workshop raises awareness for Anya Singda's case and the repression inside Tibet. Students for Free Tibet is committed to amplifying the voices of Tibetan heroes like Anya Singda and demand the immediate and unconditional release of Anya Singda by the Chinese government. Quoting His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, it is our collective and individual responsibility to preserve and tend to the world in which we all live. Please follow SFT New York, New Jersey, or email us at grassroots@studentforfreetibet.org if you're interested in hosting a letter writing workshop. Brianya Singda, Free Tibet!
Red Bar.
주지치 그런 수업에 구작 되세라. 디쇼라타나 마나스게 장애미르게 그룹이 지도 두루치 드린가 게 앵커링 주지지 더 수신하 나시.
Next we have the Honorable Tibetan Parliament Member Tunuk Sringlai giving us an address. Thank you so much.
타다리 시계체기 레그기 미기 소버디 제가 그냥데 계속해 그나 shum잡리한다네 나의 손자 예 탐체디 인지나르마 치치초. Good afternoon and thank you to the organizers of the North American Peace Rally for Tibet on the 36th anniversary of the Nobel Peace Prize award to His Holiness the Great 14th Dalai Lama. And thank you to all of you who are here in attendance today. This year carries added meaning as we celebrate the 90th birthday of His Holiness, marked globally as the Year of Compassion. On this auspicious occasion, on behalf of all the Tibetans in exile and in Tibet, as a member of the Tibetan Parliament in exile, I extend our heartfelt greetings, profound gratitude, and deep reverence to His Holiness for His lifelong wisdom and boundless kindness. Under the leadership of His Holiness, the Tibetan people's struggle for freedom remains one of the few global movements committed wholly and unwavering to non-violence. Time and again, His Holiness has reminded us our cause is just because violence can only breed more violence and suffering. Our struggle must remain non-violent and free of hatred. We are trying to end the suffering of our people, not to inflict suffering upon others. He further affirmed, I speak not with a feeling of anger or hatred toward those responsible for the immense suffering of our people. They too are human beings who struggle to find happiness and deserve our compassion. His Holiness the Dalai Lama's moral clarity and steadfast commitment to peace unite all Tibetans. It gives us not only the conviction that our struggle is just, but also the courage to pursue that path that benefits everyone, including the Chinese people. His Holiness is a beacon of hope for oppressed people everywhere. When accepting the Nobel Peace Prize, he said, I accept the prize with profound gratitude on behalf of the oppressed everywhere and for all those who struggle for freedom and work for world peace. He continues to give us hope today through his unwavering message of compassion and wisdom. His words resonate deeply. Even if the Chinese leave nothing but ashes in our sacred land, we Tibetans will rise from the ashes as a free nation. His Holiness is the heart and soul of every Tibetan, and we thank him for his extraordinary and selfless leadership. Today is also the 77th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This foundational document affirms that all human beings are born free, equal in dignity and right, irrespective of race, language, religion, or political status. Yet, behind the Himalayas, Tibet is enduring one of the darkest periods in its history. Tibetan children are being denied to learn their own language. The very name Tibet is being systematically replaced with the Mandarin term Xizang. As former ambassador at large for international relations, religious freedom, Sam Brownback recently stated, there is a cultural genocide in Tibet today, and we need to call it out. Today, I also want to send a clear message to the Chinese leadership. Since 1979, when Deng Xiaoping stated that apart from independence, all issues can be discussed, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Central Tibet administration have consistently pursued the middle way approach. This policy does not seek independence, but calls for genuine autonomy within the framework of the Chinese constitution, an approach that serves the long-term interests of both Tibetans and Chinese. Following this, there were 4 fact-finding missions and 9 formal rounds of dialogues between 2002 and 2010. Yet, progress has remained stagnant, and since January 2010, there has been no official dialogue. This lack of progress is due entirely to the absence of sincerity and political will and courage on the part of the successive Chinese leadership. Their strategy has clearly been to delay, in the belief that the Tibetan issue will fizzle away after the passing away of His Holiness. China, you should realize that this calculation is profoundly mistaken. Time is running out for you. As His Holiness Special Envoy Lothar Gelsen Gary said in November 14, 2006, certainly the absence of Dalai Lama would be devastating for the Tibetan people. But more importantly, his absence would mean that China will be left to handle the problem without the presence of a leader who enjoys the loyalty of the entire community and who remains firmly committed to non-violence. The Tibetan position will become more intractable in its absence, and having happened that below the leader pass away in exile would create deep and irreparable wounds. He warned, this is not a threat, but a statement of fact that far from being the problem, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is the solution. China must heed this warning and return to the negotiating table before it is too late. Across the free world, patience has grown thin. After 4 decades of stagnation, there is a growing frustration and distrust in Chinese leadership and their intentions. There are now public calls for China to return to dialogue within a clear time frame, suggesting that Tibetans may need to reevaluate the viability of the middle-way approach. It is my sincere hope that the Chinese leadership will recognize this history of but His Holiness is still with us to resolve the Tibetan issue. In conclusion, I pray that His Holiness the Dalai Lama live long in perfect health. May all his wishes be fulfilled, and may the just cause of Tibet be resolved soon. Hey, Gyalo!
Hey, Gyalo!
Tu chenang korbe chidu tu lutrela tangandu tanda sound ki permit de job sabare ine kandang dudin balero namnam langani charche ne kamsun ji thwa nangso tu chenang shia dang tu chenang ye samegi kongal di jaro chi shia ye di shola jarto maram jangamire ge korbe chidu indi jimela ine kontrinde digida pechini rengi megudi to sujetsi.
Okay, first and foremost, we wanted to thank the officer and the officers. Because our permit actually ends at 4 o'clock, but we were able to get it at 14. So thank you so much. With that being said, next we have Honorable Tibetan Parliament Member Tenzin Jinla, who's also one of the co-organizers of this event. He came in fact a day earlier so we can have a briefing before the event. Thank you so much, Tenzin Jinla. Please come.
点50。Thank you, Lalani. Nakalaga. Thank you, Lalani.
English, please.
Hudo.
This yes lang.
Kaya
Yes, yes.
message na share ke debo chung science na thaling gi legi din nang liya. So ji message khari sa de le solution na so ka chu din nang liya chap se gi tawa ramze daga na shu ma sama ngi ru ki thon le ga che gi na cha de le solution di shi gi shwe de ma chung so daga na shi ri din nang liya ma cha ka sum gi phri din le su gi le shwe daga na shi thari mimang so yi de gi daga na thara so de phe di institute phe ma re na de me institute phe ma re na to de institute phe ma 그래서 상황은 대박이 있을 때 그래서 이게 이제시 있을 때 주량이 표준 나올 수도 있고. Brothers and sisters, today we stand together at one of the most symbolic places in the world, the United Nations, an institution created to protect peace, safeguard human rights, and defend the dignity of every nation and every people. On this Human Rights Day, we gather here not only to honor these universal principles, but to demand that they be upheld for Tibet and the Tibetan people. This morning we started from the City Hall in Philadelphia to the Chinese consulate down the street, and we are now here at the United Nations, the beacon of global justice. The first ever peace rally in North America is historic and symbolic. In Philadelphia, the birthplace of American democracy, Declaration of American Independence was first signed in 1776. We gather to remind ourselves the history of this great nation and that freedom is always possible. Then at the Chinese consulate, we made sure that the Communist Chinese government hears our voices loud and clear, and we demand the illegal occupation of Tibet and the atrocities being committed must end immediately. We are now here at the United Nations to ask them that the ideals of liberty and human dignity that this institution was built on, those ideals should be guaranteed for all without exception, and we urge the United Nations to hold China accountable for the atrocities and their actions inside Tibet. Today our rally connects and tells our story, reminding the world that the Tibetan struggle for freedom is a struggle grounded in the same universal values of equality, justice, freedom, and human rights. Today, December 10, 2025, also marks the 36th anniversary of His Holiness the Dalai Lama receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, an award recognizing his leadership but also his visionary. Because of his tireless efforts and unwavering commitment to non-violence, peace and religious harmony, he was given this prestigious award. His Holiness has shown the world that even in the face of occupation, injustice and immense suffering, the path of non-violence remains the most powerful tool we have. His message of compassion, dialogue and universal responsibility is needed now more than ever. But as we gather here today, Tibet continues to burn, and China continues to implement draconian policies to wipe out Tibetan identity, language and culture. Since 2008, over 150 Tibetans have set themselves on fire, protesting China's occupation, demanding freedom and the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama back to Tibet. Yet the UN remains silent. Over 6,000 monasteries have been destroyed since the occupation, yet the United Nations remains silent. Tibet's fragile environment is being exploited. Nomads are made to resettle and our children are being forced into boarding schools, yet the UN remains silent. We are here today because keeping quiet is no longer enough. We gather because silence is not an option. It only helps the oppressor, never the oppressed. For more than 6 decades, Tibet has been denied its freedom. Our people have suffered under occupation and our culture has been systematically destroyed. Tibetans in Tibet still wait for their right to live freely. Tibetans in Tibet still wait for the children to learn their language without restriction. Tibetans in Tibet still wait for its monks and nuns to practice their faith without surveillance and fear. Tibetans in Tibet still wait for a future where culture is not criminalized, where environmental destruction is not ignored, and where the voices of Tibetans are not silenced. Yet, despite these challenges, despite China's hardline policies, Tibetans have not surrendered. From the grasslands of Lithang in Kham to the fresh waters and rivers in Amdo and the great mountains and forests of Uyezang, Tibetans in Tibet and the exiled communities across the world have not given up. Our resilience is strong and has been our greatest weapon. We have preserved our language, upheld our traditions, and carried forward the flame of resistance through generations because we have truth on our side, we have history on our side, and we have the leadership of His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama. Let me be clear today, Tibetans will never give up. We will continue to rise, we will resist, and we will ensure that the voices of Tibetans are heard loud and clear. The fight for freedom is never easy, but always necessary. Today, I would like to take you back to other struggles, movements that share profound connections with Tibet's fight for freedom and offer us both an inspiration and a roadmap forward. In 1930, Mahatma Gandhi led the Salt March in India, 240 miles over 24 days to protest British monopoly on salt. It seemed like such a small thing, but Gandhi understood that sometimes the most profound acts of resistance are the simplest. He picked up a handful of salt from the beach and broke the law. This direct action inspired thousands and eventually millions joined Gandhi in this protest. The British Empire, the most powerful force in the world at that time, told Gandhi to wait, to be reasonable, to accept the reality of colonial rule. They imprisoned him, they beat him, but Gandhi and the Indian people persisted with non-violent resistance, satyagraha, the power, the force of truth and love. And after over 100 years of colonial rule and 17 years after the Salt March, India won its independence. In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. sat in a Birmingham jail here in America, his body confined, but his spirit unbreakable. From the prison walls, he wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all of us indirectly." Dr. King was speaking about the American civil rights movement, but he could have been speaking about Tibet. He could have been speaking about India under the colonial rule. These movements, India's fight for independence, America's civil rights movement, and Tibet's struggle today, are all part of the same great river of human aspiration for freedom. Folks, we have to understand these movements succeeded not because it was easy, but because ordinary people made extraordinary choices. Ordinary people made extraordinary sacrifices. The civil rights movement teaches us another important lesson. Change comes through solidarity and unity. When black students sat at those lunch counters, when they were joined by white students who understood that freedom is indivisible. When marchers walked from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, there were people of all races, all faiths, all backgrounds united in a common cause. Today, we embody that same tradition of solidarity. Our presence here today, Tibetans from all over North America, Rizang, Amdo, and Dome have gathered here because though we may be from different backgrounds and regions, though we may have different political ideologies for Tibet's independence, of a middle way and dialogue to resolve the issue of Tibet, we are all Tibetans united in our struggle, standing under one flag, under one anthem, and under one leadership of our nation. This rally here today reflects the true spirit of the Tibetan people and clearly shows that our spirit will never die. We are united not by where we come from, but by what we believe in. We are united not by what regions we belong to, but because we recognize that we are all Tibetans first. We are united because we recognize that we have a common enemy who is responsible for the occupation of our nation. We are united because we have a common struggle for the freedom of Tibet. We are united by what we stand for, by what we have all gone through, and we are united because we all believe that every human being has the right to live in dignity, right to freedom, right to practice their culture, and right to speak truth without fear. The Tibetan people do not ask for conflict, not for revenge, but for justice. We ask for the implementation of the human rights the UN proclaims to defend. We ask for renewed global attention to the crisis in Tibet. We ask for a commitment to peaceful dialogue that honors the aspirations of the Tibetan people and respects their right to determine their future. Brothers and sisters, we must raise our voices until the world cannot ignore us. We must tell the stories that China once silenced, the story of every political prisoner, every destroyed monastery, every Tibetan child who cannot learn their own language, and every family torn apart. We organize, We build coalitions. We connect the Tibetan freedom movement to other struggles for human rights around the world. We pressure our governments. We insist that our leaders speak out against cultural genocide. We remind them that the economic interests can never justify silence in the face of oppression. And most importantly, we keep hope alive, because hope is not a passive wish that things will get better. Hope is an active belief that our actions matter, our voices count, that justice is possible if we are willing to work for it. But hope alone is not enough. We must take action, and today I call upon all Tibetans to put aside regionalism, put aside factionalism, put aside partisan politics, and rise with renewed strength, commitment, and energy. The struggle for Tibet needs all our voices, our creativity, and our leadership. In this age, we have more tools than ever to tell Tibet's story, to counter China's misinformation, to build alliances, and to demand justice on a global stage. Tibet is not forgotten. We are not a story of the past. We are a people of the present, and we will shape our future. Tibetans are not defeated, and the movement for Tibet is not fading, it is rising. Thank you, my brothers and sisters. Hekalo! Hekalo!
Hekalo! Hekalo!
这些人我的什么啦？的确呢，可能说说不给专门托当，也那个玩的了，就是不管人呢，可能你不得听的，Northern Golden，那说不给专门托当的，你不得。
All right. Next, we have the director of the Southern Mongolian Human Rights Center, Naidan Bojigan. He will give you a speech. Please give him a big applause. Thank you so much.
Dear brothers and sisters and fellows of our communities. My name is Naidan Bojigan, a Southern Mongolian human rights activist. I'm speaking on behalf of the Southern Mongolian Human Rights Information Center. Mongolians were never a minority in their own land and north of the Great Wall. Lowever, this began to change in 1949 when the Chinese regime took control of the region and launched a settler colonial project over 7 decades of genocide, ethnic cleansing, and population transfers. Mongolians have been reduced to an absolute minority in their ancestral homeland. Today, the Chinese government is implementing a new form of genocide, the cultural genocide, aimed at the complete eradication of Mongolian language, culture, and identity. Under a newly adopted language policy, the Mongolian language has been completely banned throughout the entire educational system in the region. Textbooks in Mongolian have been replaced with Chinese language materials, and Mongolian science publications and even extracurricular learning of the language have been prohibited. Public campaigns with slogans like "Speak Mandarin" and "Become Civilized Person" openly promote Chinese supremacy, enforcing a mass indoctrination program called the firm inculcation of the Chinese nationality common identity. The Chinese government is criminalizing Mongolians for expressing their cultural pride, speaking their language, or even wearing traditional clothing. Communication in Mongolian is prohibited not only in public life, but also in many parts of private settings. These systematic policies are compounded by further acts of abuse that highlight the hostile environment faced by Mongolians. In a recent case, a 9-year-old Mongolian girl was severely beaten by her Chinese teacher for her limited understanding of Chinese and her inability to complete homework in the language. The assault left the girl with a torn ear and severe bleeding. This incident underscores the physical and physiological harm inflicted on Mongolians as part of the broader campaign of cultural genocide. As you all know, China is a signatory to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. But the government of China publicly claimed that China does not have indigenous people and indigenous issues because indigenous issues are a product of Western colonizations only, claiming that there is no Western colonization in China today. Therefore, there is no indigenous issue. This is how China issues free pass to herself and itself and continues to carry out all forms of human rights violation, not only in Southern Mongolia, but also in other occupied nations, including Tibet, East Turkestan, and Hong Kong. I urge the international community, especially democratic nations, to hold China accountable for its horrendous crimes and atrocities perpetuated in the occupied nations of Southern Mongolia, Tibet, East Turkestan, and Hong Kong in front of the eyes of the international community. Meanwhile, I expect everyone who is standing here today to stand with each other in solidarity, advocate for each of your community until all our people acquire the genuine freedom, no matter abroad or at home. Act and do whatever you can towards obtaining freedom and your rights. This is the compelling obligation of our generation. Thank you so much. Free Tibet, free Southern Mongolia,
Free Southern Mongolia.
free East Turkestan,
Free East Turkestan.
free Hong Kong,
Free Hong Kong.
free China. Thank you.
투시엔낭 노빈 버린도 소포기 간다 로빈 토당기 겐지 그저 이체가 되는 당시바디 네 별안된 탑즈바다 좀버고 아주 계산으로다
All right, next we have our Tibetan independence activist and writer, scholar, Jan Rai. He's already on stage. Give him a big round of applause, please. Thank you so much.
넘버스 가는데 들이 넘나 비페 무엇이 있습니까 부추가 이제 가는 저 뻔하게 가서 그래나 정동 나야 돼 시간 몇도 지 뻔을 막 하면 결정되나 지슈 들이 소파가 좀 강게 쿨시 잘해 내가 갔어요 축축으시나 두 이 명시 미래지기 대표비 아 내가 생각하고 싶다 이나는 직 그뭐 우슈면 넘버스 가서 제대로 뜻이 차리가 생기가 근데 점링께서 두대네 두 까면치 주는 것이 지금 누상 왜냐면 애들이 취해왔어 안다 점링께서 이게 도안이 도다게 수가 로디 뒤지기니를 심었어 하는 게 전 뒤주 내려 그래 점링께서 이 유는 나라주 배가 부탁 페이지 완전 더 남자 입에 대급되는 대비만 대부도 생각을 미용해. 꾸직 나라나서 제어만. 제가 대급 유지 잡는 게 아니라 영에 대급직 엘살바도르는 대급이 그래 또 슈스케트 잡는 게 소지나는 같이 제어도 내가 또 대비 사실 늦어가는 증기가 왔다. 못하요 말이야. 여름치 오른쪽은 실패요. 나라주 구석도 게 짜지 지슈디 이지 쪽으로 프랑스 홍콩 시리아인데 다리나 슈트에 매체는 난도 다고 대비요 말이야. 슈트에 뭐 먹고 치사에 제대 그것도 로마미 도당 깨지 셰인데 human rights 도라 주주지 샤가 도당 요새 니나네 본도 도당 지 회화에서 가는 단계에서 로마미 도당에 남다 안 주었어요. Right for self-determination. 어디 내가 최소도 나도 살다 보다 무거워. 이거 나서 내가 정리해서 보통 때문에 나는 보통 딜레이 수수 계획만 돼요. 저는 아무도 란주였어야지. 한번에 가를 벗겨서 란세를 벗겨. 나는 란세면은 자다 가를 보고 가를 때 그래 좋아요. 그래서 그것도 민지 지내는 거 말이지. 아무데 나는 내 별 안에 무슨 양이야 돼. 여다 신다 하게 먹다. 란세 내사 니나네 나는 로미 폭탄 저네 마음에 여다 때문에 폭탄 폭탄을 내었어요. 그럼 미리 걸 싸웠다는데 얘 미리 싸웠을 때 뭔가지 시행하고 내 정민이가 미리 프랑스랑 제노사이드 컨벤션 말이세요. 미리 싸웠다는데 미지 맨날 이제 미세 주고 말다. 니를 내가 무슨 뒷내기네 게임이네 뭐지 무슨 아이들이 그걸 내가 전화 봐. 미리 이 동도 같이 사기네 이 가이 보이는 것도 하고 뭐 고모도 야진내다지 왜냐면 가리 그림을 써야지 어쨌든 때 나가 띵겨 그래서 나도 잡고 싶지 내내기 나라도 고모야고 시작하지만 나도 승리해서 어떻게 내가 컨시야 이네 뉴욕 나도 누구 야고 싶은 거야 그래서 네가 막 뭔가 야고 시해제 그래 제노사이드를 나도 같이 해야지 상무스나가 예수지고 그 견주지고 되는 주요 말에 내가 그때 슈체스나 와야지 예수 스테이가 그래서 나머지 만날 때 좀나 나게 조금씩 디제지기대 그걸 가게 느끼고도 그거 나중에 그리는 대신 쟤네 나는 도체나 주기가 양견나라는 나의 연구가 그래서 자다 개인의 길 순교하래 먼저 순교 대신 가면 별에 그게 얘기하지 March 10, 1959. 별게다고 변이 있을게요. 그 뒤집겨 깨시켜라는. 별게다고 변이.
회개 닫고 변해인. 회개 닫고 변해인.
이번 깨시 가르쳐놨으나 자나 변에 타격동글.
자나 변해 타격동글.
별게란데 쌍마이.
별한테.
gembe 손디. 영하고도 시간 gembe고. 정말 멋잖아. 그냥 뭐 정말이네, 내 숨겨주지네, 나가 묻다 받아줘야 이렇게 얘기하다니 가보니 그러지 않는다.
그렇게나 내가 아니 먼저 간다 별한테 아니 별 개점 받고 괜찮은 몰라. 디시에가 간다 말하면 저기 아니 권리 장마 아니 캐나다기 그삭지 이동 총알로 권리 장마당 아니 여기 탑쪽 아네스테시아 님.
오, 다 내 좋아져는 뭐야? 그것도 사고를 싣고 살았다들 나와서 못 가서래. Next we have Miss World Canada 2015 and a long-term supporter and friend of Tibet, Anastasia Lin. Please give it up for her. Thank you so much for coming all the way here, especially in this weather, and she was here early. She waited. Appreciate it.
Dear friends, honorable members of the Tibetan community, thank you so much for allowing me to share this moment with you. When I thought about what I was going to say today, something from my childhood came to mind with great clarity. When I was around 11 years old, still in elementary school, I remember planning very seriously to travel to Tibet and becoming a Tibetan nun. I had no idea how impossible that idea was, but to my young mind, the mysticism and the spirituality of Tibetan Buddhism felt like a doorway to something pure and magnificent. The image of the snow mountains, the turning of the prayer wheels, and the deep, powerful Tibetan songs. I felt like both bold and sacred. I would go to bookstores and pick up books on Tibetan Buddhism, books far too difficult for a child to understand. Even though I didn't understand the word, I remember the feeling. Tibet for me represented a pure land of vast open, unpollutedness. A place where spiritual realm is not abstract, but alive. Years later, when I left China and came to Canada when I was 13, I began to read the other side of the Tibetan story. I read accounts of oppression, restrictions on faith, and of the difficulties Tibetans faced when trying to simply preserve their way of life. It was heartbreaking, yet the vision of Tibet as a pure land in my heart only grew stronger. When I moved to New York, I would often visit the Rubin Museum, the Tibetan Art Museum, to sit with the thangkas, the statues, and the paintings. I would go whenever I felt a bit lost, and every time when I came out, I felt a bit clearer, steadier, and more connected to something higher. This is the gift Tibet has given to the world, often quietly, and often without acknowledgement. And today, on this very meaningful day, I want to say to every Tibetan here, you have done extraordinarily well. For 65 years, despite immense pressure, despite attempts to erase your language, your culture, and your faith, you have not only survived, you have kept your spiritual lineage alive. Your resilience is not loud, it's not violent, it's not rooted in anger. It's rooted in faith, dignity, compassion, and devotion. And that's why your culture continues to inspire people like me, people far outside of your community, people who grew up without a teacher, without a monastery, without a spiritual guide. Your existence has been a lighthouse for millions. Tibetan culture has not been destroyed. It has become one of the most respected spiritual traditions in the world. While many cultures, including my own Chinese heritage, have lost irreplaceable parts of their spiritual essence through decades of upheaval under the communist regime, Tibetans succeeded in preserving the heart of yours. You preserved your monasteries in exile. You preserved your scriptures, your chants, your wisdom tradition, and above all, you preserve your reverence for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader who embodies his compassion and perseverance for the entire world. For someone like me, coming from a place where so much spiritual heritage has been cut off, this is immeasurably precious. Many Chinese today walk like spiritual orphans, disconnected from the depth of their own civilization, unsure of what was lost. Recovering that will take decades, if not centuries. But Tibetans, you kept your inner world intact. You kept your spiritual homeland alive, even when your physical homeland is in danger. And because of that, the world has received immense blessings. Your prayers, your peace, your example of nonviolent resistance, and your devotion to compassion over resentments. So today I want to say this from the deepest sincerity. Please continue protecting the Pure Land in our hearts. What you carry is not just for Tibet, it's for humanity. And it's for every person searching for light in a darkened world. Your culture, your faith, your spirituality, these are treasures, and they have already changed my life and the lives of millions of others in ways you may never fully see. Thank you for preserving what is sacred. Thank you for inspiring us. And may the pure light in your heart continue to live. Thank you very much.
주체랑 메시 NS님 아니 디체랑 그 단다 그게 단다 맞춰 봤다 양나 레미 더불어 레브리 유니언 아이 나온다 미 사야 몽부기 아니 초신 그게 여러분들 해서 이 지역 초소 지금 의견다
so much, Anastasia Lin, for this very inspirational speech. And next we have the President of the Tibetan National Congress, Centrex. He's also the Vice President of SEIU Labor Union with over 2 million members. Jimmy Ogila is someone who has also been talking about Tibet. Most of you may have seen him on social media. So I would like to welcome Jimmy Ogila on stage. Thank you so much.
My name is Jigme, and I'm a Tibetan. We stand here today not just as activists, not just as refugees in exile, but as children of a nation fighting to breathe, a nation fighting to live and refusing to disappear. We stand here because Tibet is occupied. We stand here because Tibetans inside occupied Tibet resist every day. We stand here because His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, has carried our nation on his shoulder for more than 70 years with compassion and truth to power. When the Chinese Communist Party invaded Tibet in 1949, they occupied an independent nation, a civilization that's thousands of years old, that governed itself with its own language, identity, leaders, laws, currency, and history. China at that point foolishly thought that they would erase and destroy us. Instead, they ended up starting and igniting one of the most powerful freedom movement in modern history. A movement led by countless Tibetan political prisoners who refused to surrender their identity. A movement carried by 168 Tibetans, religious and ordinary Tibetans who selflessly walked into fire so the world could see the flame. A movement reborn generation after generation, transforming trauma into resistance. Today, in front of the United Nations on Human Rights Day, we must confront the truth, which is as cold as this Arctic blast today in New York. The biggest human rights abuse and crime on earth is happening inside occupied Tibet, and the world and this institute, the UN, pretends they don't see it. So we are here to force them to see us. Tibet continues to be betrayed by the world. This is not an emotional, sort of an emotional outcry. This is a historical fact. In fact, when the global body, this global body, were busy drafting and voting on the Declaration of the Human Rights in 1948, Tibet was being occupied. What resulted was 1.2 million Tibetans executed, over 1,000 ancient irreplaceable monasteries destroyed, countless Tibetans imprisoned, including His Holiness the Panchen Rinpoche, the longest kidnapped child political prisoner in history. Currently, nearly 1 million children are forcibly separated and imprisoned in colonial boarding schools. Nomads living in the grasslands for centuries are shot or jailed if they refuse to leave. Lhasa, our holiest city, our capital city, is the most militarized, has the most militarized surveillance city on the entire planet. Freedom House ranks Tibet the least free country. And just for context, North Korea ranks number 3. Tibetans cannot display their flag, cannot celebrate His Holiness, cannot compose, pray, or sing about Tibet without fear of prison, torture, or death. What is happening in Tibet is a genocide. What is happening in Tibet is an ethnic cleansing. And it is a 76-year-old crime that the world has refused to punish. In fact, the United Nations now still has the Chinese government on the Human Rights Board, which is a hypocritical irony. There are leaders in this world that are still rolling out red carpets, leaders who are shaking hands with this bloody dictator of China and creating trade deals. And we are here to say enough is enough. To every diplomat in this glass house, to every government officials that chooses trade over truth, to Beijing, who's probably right now watching us, there's one thing I want to tell them, directly as possible, and to the world, without fear or any sort of hesitation, that Tibet was never a part of China. Tibet is never a part of China, and Tibet will never be a part of China. For 76 years, Tibetans have carried this struggle in our DNA, in our bones, and it is in our very existence. The Chinese government has spent billions and billions of dollars trying to erase us, but they have failed. They failed because nobody refused to surrender. They failed because Tibet will survive longer than the Chinese government. Today we also honor His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, who received a Nobel Peace Prize 36 years ago. A remarkable reminder that the moral authority of Tibet is stronger than any tank or bullet manufactured in Beijing. 66 years in exile, we did not choose this life. It was imposed on us. But in exile, under the leadership of His Holiness, we have rebuilt, we have organized, we have strengthened identity, but the thing that I want to tell you all today is that our work continues. To every Tibetan organization, to every movement leader, to every Tibetan influencer, every activist, and every voice in this movement, when we attack each other and divide ourselves based on Choga, Chulu, Rangze, Umelam, when we are fractured into supporting this political leader or that political leader, for us, it might seem important. For us, it might seem urgent. But to the rest of the world, it means nothing. Nobody cares about these pointless divisions. When they see us protesting here today, they see only one thing: Tibetans fighting for Tibet. One united voice for Tibet. Like I see all of you today, Tibetans united for Tibet. When we look at different ways we use our political stance, I keep saying our journey and our passage may be different, but our end destination, our vision for a country, for a people, culture, history, and a leader remains the same. Freedom and self-determination are the final visions. And when we stand together, people pay attention. Governments pay attention. China pays attention. So unity is not an option, it is survival. Inside occupied Tibet, our siblings are not fighting with each other. They stand as Tibetans because there's nothing more and nothing less than being a Tibetan, because their lives depend on it. And if they can do that in occupied Tibet with all the draconian policies and a military occupation, we living in this free world have no excuses. So always remember, the enemy is the regime that invaded our nation. Let me repeat that. The enemy is the regime that invaded our nation, not each other. So, if we are here fighting each other, pointing fingers at each other, that is not any form of patriotism. That is not helping the movement. The only group that's helping is Beijing. I want to cut this short because I think we are running out of time here. But I want to come here and talk about what we need in this living in exile. But I want to say that living in exile, we don't have the luxury of internal fights or personal egos. We don't have the privilege of any sort of political games. We do not have the time to be arguing and debating each other. I see a lot of younger people here today, and I want to say this really quickly to the next generation. The Chinese government fears you simply because you exist. You exist despite 76 years of occupation and genocide. You are proof that the Chinese government failed and Tibet survived in 1949 and continue to survive. They do not understand how powerful your existence, your reach, your voice, and you as the weapon towards Beijing that they cannot stop. The truth is simple. Tibet can only be saved by Tibetans, not by foreign governments, not by the UN, not by polite resolutions, and not by empty statements. So on this day, on this Human Rights Day, let us, for a moment, renew our commitment to each other as Tibetans, and let's tell the world that we will show up, we will speak up, we will lobby harder, we will organize stronger, educate each other until we get back home to Tibet. Tibet needs all of us. Every Tibetan voice, every Tibetan idea, every Tibetan skill, courage, because Beijing's strategy is clear. To exhaust us, to divide us, to confuse us, and most importantly, to break our hopes. Together, we have to realize that nothing is impossible. A quick example, we showed the whole world when China spent millions of dollars to falsely accuse and viciously attack Kundu 2 years ago. We saw what we could achieve when we come together. So I strongly believe that one day, whether the world is ready or not, they will witness and celebrate His Holiness, the great 14th Dalai Lama, return back to his rightful throne at the Potala Palace, reunited with our siblings in a free and independent Tibet. Long live His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet. Free Tibet! Pray Galo! Pray Ramsey Galo!
我当然也是我了公司学艺，你满足你当然的题到我们学习才能现在你也别过了，别去南疆的时候我别要穷下，因为呢当你要到了别去下一个了好玩了，没钱个的是老钱，钱个等到的呢，给人心中的得陪唱我南下，你那么些停下来了，因为呢当我这个的上我们的其实修了的了，好像等你到了我们中国去，但就是新的钱了的钱是吧？他们那几个月给一送些钱，到我们这里给听不起送给找了用什么来是吧？the officers in charge out here have told us that we have the sound permit till 4 o'clock. As usual, they're having delays because it was a whole day event. Thank you so much for your patience. And they did extend it till 4:30, but nevertheless we went on. It's almost 5 o'clock. So after this, according to I think it's fair enough for me to say the law. We cannot have the sound permit anymore. So henceforth, there won't be any sound permit. But thank you so much for your patience and being here. 참고요. 수수 룰을 나는 패다 보시. 당연히 단독의 소셜 내가 찍는 있으시면 아니 프로그램 말이야. 가서 찍는 것은 별의 매겨 지내라. 단독이 제시하는 것이 단독이 산에게 별의 저기 소수권의 투지를 필요시하는데 지라스게 매라 대신 무엇을 분석이 숨겨져 있어. 아니 그러나 뭐야 노데스는 그러나 뭐데스 심시 차오다 아니 그제 마시오다 그대로 시도하네 다 단다고 둘이 나서 한 단독에 둘이 나로나 안 도셔링가라 아니 단다대 먼저 노블로게 짜듯이 야마 도서게네 한 내게 상관 없고 뒤에 켜스켜스 해패라나 시 뒤에 패다 게 슈드 선는 Now please step forward everyone if you don't mind now we won't be having the mic so for the few words we just have only 1 or 2 speakers left please so everyone can be heard Thank you so much. 상무로 패러나 균 패러나 나가. 도시 최셔야 돼. 상무로 패결로.
나 당근 고 사기로 지더라 양차는.
뒤에 패러나 뒤에 패지 가능한 순전하게
딱곧
이제 나 순전하게 딱 홍콩 집합서가 아니 뒤에 카렌 나포기 집합서가 그것도 그래 뒤 탑서 그 중에 토마
그러면 사. 그 최고로 이렇게. 라고다. 마술 되면 안 가지고 이게
따따 저러는 거 나고. 미걸
마이크 라이트. 사이. 마이크 연말. 몰라면 정말 쉽다니 되지. 아니 생길랑 살았어 말도. 다 고추. 오 마이. 챙길랑 많이 살았어. 고추에 챙길랑 많이 살았어. 야, 다 고추.
by all of your actions, and I continue to be extremely motivated by seeing every single time there's so many Tibetans at every single event. So my name is Joyce Halligan, and I am an American-born Hong Konger and the founder of Project Black Mask Hong Kong, and also a member of the Captive Nations Coalition. Back in around 2020, we were able to meet with the Secretary of State, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and talk about the issue of the captive nations, which included the Tibetans, the Southern Mongolians, and of course Hong Kongers. And so I've had the distinct pleasure over the years of working alongside many Tibetans, and in our shared struggle for freedom and human rights. And I've met with members of the government in order to advocate, so I hope that we can continue these kinds of actions. Today you launched the North America-wide Tibet campaign, and I want you all to know that Hong Kongers and other captive nations stand with you. We gather here to celebrate Dalai Lama's lifelong commitment to non-violence and compassion, yet also gather because Tibet is still not free. Inside of Tibet, I understand that people are fighting and living under very, very dense surveillance and repression. We're speaking your language, teaching your faith, or preserving your culture can be treated as a threat. Reports from the UN experts describe a vast network of state-run boarding schools where around 1 million Tibetan children have been separated from their families and communities and pushed to abandon their language, culture, and religion in the name of assimilation. This is not education, it is social engineering. It is an attempt to quietly erase the Tibetan community, generation by generation. As a Hong Konger, I recognize these tactics all too well. Hong Kong was once a model of one country, two systems. Today, after the National Security Law of 2020 and the new Article 23 legislation, that promise has been erased. These laws give authority Authorities enormous powers over speech, assembly, and even private conversation. They are used not to protect the public, but to criminalize dissent and to scare people into silence. Last year, in the case known as the Hong Kong 47, 45 pro-democracy activists were sentenced to years in prison. Their supposed crime was organizing and participating in an unofficial primary election, something that would be perfectly normal in any free society. Even today, tragedy is not spared. As many of you probably know, last week a recent devastating fire at Wang Fuk Court killed over 160 residents that was due to negligent construction standards. Hong Kong authorities responded with arrests for seditious online posts, showing once again that even grief and anger can be treated as a national security risk. When I look at Tibet and Hong Kong together, I see the same pattern. A government that believes it can decide what language a child speaks, what God they may worship, which leaders they may follow, what songs they may sing, and what ideas they are allowed to express. I stand here as somebody who lives in two realities. In the United States, I can stand in front of the UN, criticize powerful governments by name, and still go home safely tonight. In Hong Kong and Tibet, people can lose their freedom for a slogan, a lesson, a newspaper article, or even a prayer. That contrast is why I founded Project Black Mask, to keep the spirit of the Hong Kong movement and to support those who are now silenced, and why I joined the Captive Nations Coalition. The Captive Nations Coalition brings together Tibetans, Hong Kongers, Uyghurs, Southern Mongolians, Chinese dissidents, and many others living under authoritarian rule. Too often are our communities treated as separate issues. But from where we stand, it's one story, a regime that fear diversity, local identities, free elections, mass media, independent courts, and faith, and label those as security threats. This is why alliances matter so deeply. When Tibetans speak about forced assimilation and the struggle to preserve language and faith, Hong Kongers will echo that call. When Hong Kongers speak about national security laws, political prisoners, and the dismantling of civic life, I believe that Tibetans also echo that call. When we stand together, as we are today, we deny authoritarian regimes the isolation that they rely upon. Our solidarity shapes the way that governments, parliaments, and international organizations see these issues, not as an isolated local dispute, but as part of a global pattern of repression that demands a global response. To my Tibetan friends, thank you for allowing me to share this day with you. Your resilience after decades of occupation and exile show the world what it means to hold on to your identity when everything is designed to take it away. On this Human Rights Day, as we honor the life and teachings of the Dalai Lama, let us send one united message to the world. Free Tibet, free Hong Kong, free all captive nations. Until that day comes, we will stand together, we will speak together, and we will refuse to be erased. And I promise you that I will not only continue to fight for Hong Kong, but will fight for Tibet with everything that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lakshmi Devi, 눈물 반대. 그때 가서 저들이 뭐 로드. I'm sorry. Hold on.
이제라 맞는다. 너한테 독도가 너지 정말 내가 나중에 지키는 게 옛날에 그냥 이게 진짜 내가 가만히 봐.
On behalf of the day, activist and former president of the Tibetan Association of Philadelphia.
통화서. 어이.
나 먼저 해. 근데 먼저 몇 살이야? 근데 먼저 몇 살이야? 스피커 보내라.
코드. 하나 콤메라.
These are the
가면 나서 총소 이번에 이게 동네나데 토하네 아주 개가 또 그래 한대 주도 되라 아주 정말 대부 처음부터 총소 한 레벨 야고 총소 정말 요백이 레규직 시제체 레규직 배토가 돼 그래서 이만 사람이 체제래 나 레규직 다리는 고소 봐라 다리 이만 당고 고소 봐라 주 가지 좀 그래 왜 라와랑세 마도지 봐도 어떤 레규직 빼지 라와랑세 토비 니만 타마지 차려 네 봐도 먼저 니는 최근에 아주 빨리 잡지 배도 탑도 돌아 레규 빼고 그래 레규 맞아봐 있나 아 저게 강에디 괜히 들어서 강에 뒤에 야실래 괜히 아장장 나도 칠로를 예배 그리 끝났더라 이번에 니는 아니 통구 땅 강에 체력해봐 용기래 괜히 강에 뒤에 안쪽이 최고 그래 괜히 동쪽에 안쪽이 최고 그래 이 대신에 먼저 배바이를 펼쳐봐라 이 деньги 매봐 있나 먼저 배바이를 그거 맞춰봐라 근데 쏜다 나는 정말 네 망유나 맞춰봐 나는 사매기 미치기 있네 회나기 분이사야 좋디 가족이 이게 채도 내가 빼게 예산체 저기 뽑아 토병 아니 나 배바지 나 배백이 예지케지 내가 지리에서 뽑아 토부 나온 거야 할래비 개친 거래 너도 빨리 중교요 말해 봐봐 빨리 중교요 말해 먼저 담은이가 상마 걔네 개념도 두년 차디야 돼 담은이 사매기 차세기 주도가 되니 교환 조직이야 돼 봐봐 얘들 수수기 얘가 수수기 개백이 채도 얘가 지금 짜겨지래 얘들 나도 배워도게 나도 개백이 채도 다른데 너도 제고 그래 나도 세수한테 나도 당장 결론 여기 제노는 여기도 내가도 갖고 했대 이번이네 얘네 그쪽에 땅 대고 그래 나나 생기 빼줘야지 내 땅고 그래 얘들 간에 다른 가서 내가 곧또 그래 다른 봐 아니 나도 예 다兄弟们저거 망고기 개인기서 남겨요 미사기 아니 나와 잡지 내 제주 아 레규 다다 산에 배주는 년도게 사사 후도니 들은 남아건도 얘기 제일 저거 망고지 빼기도 이게 또 남아도 산에 가져 나지 다른 저거 저기 잡죠 남아 다시게 제주 나니야라 레규도 빼지 잡라 나지 주변 남아이나 사도 싫어하는 그래 너도 산에 별나 잡을래나 너도 지금 양도 제가 가지고 있는 얘기 빼기를 하래. 아니 맞아. 삼사 마비고 삼사 야비고 하래. 얘들 아니 레벨이 가서 교조한 제 답적인 레벨이 냠배 겨도 들어가 안 주기 변하기 싫어. 그래도 문제지. 뒤나라 계속 받고 그래. 미만라 너무니 미만라 지나나 그래. 안제 주도자 자격이 주도인데 자격이 또니 자배 주변 나온 거야. 할 레벨 개치버려. 버갈로.
Pegalo! Peranzengalo! Pege tapo pemiye! Pege tapo pemiye! Kama pene taje tonge! Peranzengalo! Free Tibet now! Free Tibet now! China out of Tibet now! China out of Tibet now! Tibet belongs to Tibetan! Tibet belongs to Tibetan! Tibet was never part of China! Tibet was never part of China! Stop the genocide in Tibet! Stop the torture in Tibet! Stop the murder in Tibet! Free Tibet now! Release the pension Lama now! Release the political prisoners now! Stop the genocide in Tibet! Free Tibet now!
비나라 초다카니 초시 3년에 꿀레교제 문에 소수의 개인케체 꿀레교제 상말로 도지체 믹스하게 니요 슈겐게 칼로와 상말로 도지체 주야이 내남도 내가 잡존한 게 상말로 얘기 도지체 할 레벨 남도 꿀레교서 이제 개도가 가리지. 근데 시라 좀 수잖아. 아 정말 수잖아. 그렇지. 제일 좋고. 그렇지 쟤는 아니 단다 카마디라 장아도 단다 대행기 부대 장아리 부대 기위 링귀 친구 그리 소중게 아니 아니 수제 내도 수제 뉴욕의 뉴저지 선이 그리 보면 한거
As far as I know, including me,
So now in conclusion, we have the thank you speech from the organizing committee, the president of the Regional Tibetan Women's Association of New York, New Jersey, Kamachindula. Thank you.
덴지. 고고치나 경화라. 고고치.
Thank you all for joining us in the successful event. Hoping that our voices will be heard, and I hope that our younger generation will be able to carry a legacy like the way we have tried to carry our forefathers. With that being said, we should end the session with a prayer of the words of truth composed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Thank you.
야, 댄즈면은 대신이라고 빨리 반에 거지. 네. 야제뱅아시 냥주조라 아부제다군데 의소대시세다로마제 다계된 배명하된 유지 제시도세 요소도베데 잠리야베베데 그게 다 主被给不难，终日难去朝我边难去。40年，朝本流的边，把米都给那位娘大主，你个女子没给几百个。现在的个家族有情，人家家族亲的给多难，娘中不给不给。找到的面对，我走在别中间。面目的给那这个那些一表的人，年纪人，年生的你长着的有命。有所当的高原，面对住，人年都那不对，要做本事让我咱们别人出去三所这个对了。这边个是牛娃牛都有，对当天气差不多让人来，这边路松龙只用大的，高我家长出北给不难，这些都是东西用文字，我那广播节的是忘给。30个位亲啊看见谁用手家最门那看这边，天上的金牛都插文胸，难度去年3倍，说送土街最大的进路，连着路没线的大长的，连北没浪连北牛都收。Pekalo, pekalo, öğrensin galo.